Hello folks, my name is Wes and I live in Wyoming, and as you can see I've got a horrible addiction to vintage aluminum. This is some of them. This one is a 1976 Bull Zero fifth wheel. They're fairly rare. That blue and white one back there is a 1941 Terra Cruiser. And that was actually my grandparents' little camper. And this is an Airstream that I got for a pretty reasonable price. And we just couldn't pass it up. And then there's this 1978 Coachmen Leprechaun. It's on a Ford chassis. It runs well, but it definitely needs some work. We couldn't pass it up either. It was free. Some people just wanted it moved off their property. But free comes with a price. And we'll get into that pretty quick. We'll start here with the inside. The upholstery's in pretty good shape, as well as the dash. And you can see it's got some beautiful orange shag carpet. I'm kind of partial to it myself, but we're getting closer to the actual problems. You can see the water damage, and it doesn't seem to end, but only get worse as I pan up. And that's just the front. There's my help, one of them. And as we start to look towards the back, you can see there was a lot more from a leaky roof that caused a whole bunch of damage. Some of it there's a story to. Some of it is just neglect over the years. But like the front upholstery, this upholstery is in actually pretty good shape. It does have an onboard generator. More good upholstery. I've got things pretty well opened up right now, just trying to dry it out. There is a pesky fly in here because I opened it up. You can see I took the TV antenna off, and there's some just age issues with things. I have not tested the water system out. That's debris falling out of the hole from the TV antenna on top of the stove. I believe everything works. And like I say, the biggest problem is the condition of the roof. And we'll just delve deeper into that as we go with this party. It got down into the wall there. I'm hoping that's salvageable on the inside. Probably saw this tongue and groove lumber back here. That's not for the ceiling, although I wish I had a bunch of it for the ceiling. That's just to redo this wall here. I'll probably have to take those cabinets off and do in behind them too. The bathroom wasn't spared the water damage. Pretty sure all the parts are here that I need. But I'm going to have to do a little bit of repair in here too. But I knew that when I brought it home. You can see the white patches where I have covered up screw holes as a temporary remedy for the water leakage. I've got a bunch more to do, but as you can see over here on my shed roof, there's railing that I took off. That was all along here and around the edges, and the TV antenna, and then that hamburger box luggage holder that was right there. But all that did was give us more holes to leak water through. Anyway, I will put up a couple of still photos of what this thing looked like when it had a whole bunch of snow sitting on top of it. As you can see here, well, that's where the TV antenna was. But every place one of the pedestals for the side rails is a spot that needs to be clean and patched, keep the water out. You can see the really crappy old stuff that was supposed to be a sealer, but it didn't. And the previous owner tried to use some of that really sticky sealer stuff, but he failed to clean the crud off, including silicone, so it didn't stick, and it created a whole bunch of leaks, and especially right here, right where the water pooled because of the dip in the roof. Anyway, that's all going to come off, get cleaned up, and resealed. Now this is going to be a temporary fix just so it doesn't leak anymore, and I can get some of the repairs done on the inside without it getting wet again. As you can see here on the side, it's going to need some other minor repairs. I've got to see if I can find fender well covers, skirts, whatever you want to call them. This one's in a little better shape. It at least gives me a pattern for what to look for. And some of the trim covering and stuff like that, but that's easy. Anyway, we're pretty happy with what we got, especially for the price. Just a recommendation, if you're going to do any work on the roof of a RV and it's got a ladder, get you a little ladder to lean up against it. match up the top rungs, or the top rung of the ladder against the built-on ladder, because then you don't have to crawl up with your feet back underneath the camper and pretending you're a cliffhanger. Well, in case you're wondering, this old rig only has a little over 33,000 miles on it. It's got a 460 cubic inch engine in it and automatic transmission. Like I said before, it runs like a champ. It is a gas guzzler. I had another pickup that had a 460 in it, which my youngest son owns now, and that one's been in the family since it was new. It is a powerhouse, but it is a gas guzzler. Anyway, we went over to another town to pick this up, and it was midwinter, and well, we went over and worked on it and got it started and brought it home in a blizzard. And turns out it had a whole bunch of ice and snow up on the roof. And after shoveling and sweeping the snow off the top, I put a big old tarp over the whole thing to keep out any more moisture, and it turns out it was already full of moisture. I'm pretty sure that the space between the ceiling up there and the top of the unit was full of water, which had frozen, and so it was a great big ice cube until it got to be, warm enough for it all to melt. And I came out finally when it was warm and sunny and pulled the tarp off, and I climbed up inside here to open it up and take a look at things, and I reached up and pulled down on some of that white ceiling material, and a whole bunch of water dumped on my head. I'm glad I wasn't recording because it was not suitable for family viewing. And the next day I went towards the back and was poking around, and I did the same thing again back there. So anyway, there's lots of moisture in there, and I'm gonna have to rip out the entire ceiling up there and let it dry out and assess the damage. Anyway, this is the first part of our adventure in repairing the 78 Coachmen Leprechaun. Stay tuned. Well, I'm a little further along. As you can see, it's kind of stubborn stuff, but where the screws penetrated the aluminum, it's up and it's sharp and in the way, so you just tap them down to where they won't make a hole in that tape. Now, I failed to explain when I told y'all that making these patches was just a temporary fix. I plan on replacing this whole metal roof at some point. It's just I need to see how bad it is, and I don't want to rip the roof off and then have it rain. As you can tell, it's probably not as bright as it was on my little last clip. That's because we're starting to get clouds coming in, and I think it's going to rain, and I'm going to have to tarp this whole thing off again. I need several days of sunshine to do this, but it's not always cooperative. Anyway, this is all part of the process, and I got to get as much of this putty stuff off as I can, and like right here, remnants of silicone. But that old putty is just stubborn as can be. I don't know why sometimes the putty knife seems like it's sharp as a knife, and other times it won't even touch this stuff, so you just gotta keep playing with it. I'll spare you a little bit of the monotony. Just a little bit of the prep work. Acetone does a good job of making it so it'll stick pretty well to the metal here. And the more you get cleaned off with the scraping tools, the easier this part is. And I think that ought to suffice. Now this stuff is pretty amazing. If you haven't ever worked with it before, when you peel the backing off, don't let the sticky surfaces stick to each other, because you may as well just throw it away. Because it will not let go. It doesn't even like to let go of your fingers, just so you know. Anyway, that makes for a pretty good waterproof patch. And my guess is, as long as you've got it on a clean surface, it's pretty much hurricane proof. As much as anything can be hurricane proof. We get strong winds here, and we get rainstorms, but not in a combination that's a hurricane. One of the reasons I live in Wyoming. Anyway, I'll continue on until I need to tarp it up, and wait until next time I've got sunny days in a row. Stay tuned. Well, I got the tarp on, and here comes the rain clouds. I just heard a little bit of thunder too, so It shouldn't be too long now. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, folks. There'll be more.